Have you ever noticed that you can meet someone for 3 seconds and feel absolutely certain they're trustworthy, but then stand in a grocery aisle for 10 minutes unable to pick a pasta sauce? That strange mix of instant certainty and everyday paralysis isn't random. It's your brain running one of its most powerful old programs. Welcome to Mind Decoded. I'm Dr. Ann.
And I'm Zach. Dr. Ann, what are we unpacking today?
Today, we're opening up the double-edged sword of heuristics, the mental shortcuts your brain uses to make fast judgments without consulting your slow, deliberate reasoning.
Okay, that word heuristics always sounds a little intimidating, like something from a manual. Can you break it down?
Of course, a heuristic is just a rule of thumb. Think of it like your brain's autocomplete feature. When you start typing a word, your phone predicts what you mean before you finish. Your brain does the same thing with decisions. It takes a tiny bit of information and fills in the rest from past experience, context, and memory, usually without asking you first.
So it's not me being lazy?
Not at all. It's your brain being efficient. Your brain weighs about 3 pounds and uses a huge amount of energy, so it evolved shortcuts to keep you functioning quickly in a world where pausing to analyze every leaf rustle could have been life or death.
That makes sense. I definitely don't overthink the sound of a car horn. I just jump.
Exactly, and that's the gift side. But here's the twist. Those same life-saving shortcuts can quietly shape how you judge people, spend money, and evaluate risks in the modern world, sometimes in ways that feel completely logical but aren't.
So that's the double-edged part?
Right, and the research behind this is beautiful. The landmark work comes from Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky in the 1970s. They asked a really important question. What happens when people don't have time or information to decide perfectly? And they found that instead of calculating carefully, people use fast mental rules.
So they basically caught our brains cutting corners in the lab?
They did, and one of their classic studies is so clean it feels like a magic trick. They asked people, are there more English words that start with the letter K, or more words where K is the third letter?
I'd probably say start with K. That feels easier to think of.
Most people do. Words like kite, kitchen, kangaroo come to mind quickly, but when they actually counted, there are roughly 3 times as many words where K is third. The shortcut here is called the availability heuristic. You judge how common or likely something is by how easily examples come to mind.
Wait, so my brain basically treats easy to remember as more common? That's wild.
Yes. And here's the part that makes this personally relevant. Say you see 2 plane crash stories in 1 week. Suddenly, flying feels terrifying, even though the actual statistical risk hasn't changed. Your brain isn't calculating, it's using the emotional vividness and ease of recall as evidence.
Okay, that is literally me. Every time I read a scary headline, I know the numbers, but my body doesn't feel the numbers.
And that's the exact honesty our brains need us to hear. The feeling of certainty is not the same as a careful conclusion. Your brain is doing its best with a shortcut. There are a couple more shortcuts I want to unpack because they show up constantly. One is the representativeness heuristic. That's when you judge how likely something is by how much it resembles your mental stereotype.
So a person who fits my picture of outdoorsy gets sorted into that box before I know their actual hobbies?
Exactly. And the classic experiment here is fantastic. Imagine a woman named Linda. She's 31, single, outspoken, and very bright. In college, she was deeply involved in social justice and anti-nuclear demonstrations. Now, which is more probable? That Linda is a bank teller, or that Linda is a bank teller and active in the feminist movement?
I mean, given that description, the second one sounds more likely.
And that's the exact answer most people give. But logically, the second one can't be more likely. Bank teller and feminist is a subset of bank teller. Every person in the subset is also a bank teller. So the larger category has to be at least as likely.
Okay, my brain just did something weird. I knew the logic, but my intuition still pulled toward the story.
That's representativeness. The description of Linda fits the stereotype of a feminist. So your brain substitutes how much does she resemble this category for how likely is this category. It feels right even when it violates basic probability.
That is embarrassing. I mean, I answered wrong.
Don't be embarrassed. Kahneman and Tversky found that even people trained in statistics make this same mistake under time pressure. The error isn't about intelligence, it's about the architecture of fast judgment.
So I didn't fail an IQ test. I just watched my brain run a shortcut.
Exactly. And this is one of those moments where psychology feels less like criticism and more like discovering how a machine works. The third shortcut I want to mention is anchoring. That's when an initial number or piece of information pulls your later judgments toward it.
Anchoring? You mean like when a store shows a crossed out price?
Exactly. If the sticker says was $200, now $99, the 200 becomes your anchor. You don't actually know the jacket's true value, but 99 feels like a bargain relative to that first number.
I have absolutely fallen for that. I'll see a sale and think this is a steal without asking what I'd pay if there were no anchor.
And now you're describing the mechanism perfectly. The deeper system here is what Kahneman later called System 1 and System 2. System 1 is fast, automatic, effortless. System 2 is slow, deliberate, effortful. Most of the time, System 1 runs the show, and System 2 just signs off.
So when I think I'm being rational, I might just be writing a believable story around a snap judgment.
That's such a good way to put it, and researchers have actually watched versions of this in studies. People can be asked to make a complex political judgment, but their brains often substitute an easier question, like how do I feel about this person, and then treat that as the answer. It's called attribute substitution.
Wait, that's huge. So my brain isn't answering the hard question, it's swapping in an easier one and telling me I answered the hard one.
Yes, and once you see that, a lot of your own certainties become fascinating to observe rather than shameful to own.
Okay, that's a very different energy than I usually bring to my own decisions. I usually blame myself for being irrational. Last week, I bought a laptop because the salesperson mentioned the most expensive model first. After that, the mid-range one felt reasonable. I didn't even check whether I needed that spec.
Anchoring in the wild. And it's so useful that you noticed it afterward. Notice that your brain wasn't broken. It was using a shortcut that works in many situations. Comparing options is genuinely helpful, but the store environment was designed to trigger it.
So I'm not a bad decision maker. I'm a normal human with a predictable brain.
Exactly. And look, once you understand the mechanism behind this, you might feel more compassion for yourself. This isn't a character flaw. It's a brain feature. Heuristics exist because they were adaptive. They helped our ancestors react quickly, learn from vivid experiences, and make good enough choices with incomplete information.
So the problem isn't that we have them. The problem is that the modern world is different from the environment they evolved in.
Right. You just named the core issue. We now face abstract risks, massive information flows, and marketing designed to pull specific shortcuts. Your brain is still running ancient software in a world of infinite tabs.
That image hits. So how do we actually work with this? I don't want to become a robot who analyzes every breakfast choice.
And you shouldn't. The goal isn't to eliminate heuristics. It's to become aware of when they're serving you and when they're quietly steering you. A good first question is, what information am I actually using right now?
So if I'm scared of flying after watching news, I can ask, am I using flight statistics or the vividness of a memory?
Exactly. And that one question can create a tiny pause between the shortcut and the action. You might still feel nervous, but you can see the feeling as a signal about availability, not a literal risk assessment.
That feels genuinely freeing, almost like turning on the lights in a room where you've been bumping into furniture.
I love that. Here's another practical one. When you're making a big purchase or decision, seek out a number or fact before you hear the seller's anchor. Write down your own reference point first. That's why doctors often say get a second opinion. It's not because the first opinion is wrong, it's because any first number can anchor everything after it.
Okay, so before I look at prices, I could ask myself, What would I pay for this without seeing any listed price?
That's exactly the right question. And for snap judgments about people, remember that your brain is heavily using representativeness. You're comparing this new person to your mental prototype of, say, friendly or risky. That's fast and often useful, but it also misses individual information. So you can hold the judgment lightly and gather more data.
That's a big one for me. I've definitely decided someone was going to be a certain way and then found out I'd only seen the surface pattern.
And that's so human. The adjustment isn't to stop having impressions, it's to notice you had them quickly and remain curious.
Now I'm thinking of all the systems that depend on our shortcuts. Advertising, social media, even dating apps, they're all designed to feed the fast brain.
Yes, and this is where awareness becomes a kind of superpower. When you know your brain uses availability, you can ask, what's easy to remember, and is that actually representative? When you know about anchoring, you can notice the first number someone offers and consciously set it aside.
So it's not about being perfect, it's about creating a small gap between impulse and action.
Beautifully said. That gap is the space where System 2 can chime in and ask, hey, is the quick answer actually good enough here?
And sometimes the quick answer is good enough.
Right. If a car is swerving toward you, you don't need a spreadsheet. Heuristics shine when speed matters, when the cost of being wrong is low, or when you have deep experience in a domain. Experienced firefighters, nurses, and chess players often have highly trained fast judgments.
So expertise is basically a refined shortcut network.
Yes, their brains have turned thousands of specific experiences into fast, accurate pattern recognition. That's why heuristics aren't inherently foolish. Their accuracy depends on the environment. In a stable environment with reliable feedback, a gut feeling can be incredibly smart. In a noisy environment, it can be misleading.
That's a huge insight. It explains why my gut is great for deciding if I'm too tired to drive, but terrible for choosing an insurance plan.
Perfect example. And honestly, once you understand this, it changes how you judge yourself for it. You're not trying to fix a broken brain. You're updating your mental software for a world that runs on different rules than the one it evolved for.
Okay, before we move on, I want to make this practical for our listener. If someone only remembers one thing today, what should it be?
I'd say this. Your brain is a prediction engine, not a camera. It doesn't record reality. It quickly builds a workable version using shortcuts. So when you feel very sure about something, get curious. Ask, is this careful analysis or is this an efficient guess wearing a confident costume?
That's going to stick with me. And if you're enjoying these moments of, oh, that's why I do that, hit subscribe. We release a new episode every day, and we decode one psychological pattern at a time, so you can understand your own mind without jargon.
And if this episode made you think of a time your brain jumped to a conclusion, sit with that for a moment. Next time you catch yourself being instantly certain about something, try asking one gentle question. What shortcut might be running right now?
Thanks for being here with us today.
We'll see you in the next one.